I think we're going.
Hello, welcome again. Ben accidentally hit the finger button way too early. Welcome again if you have joined us before, and hello and good to meet you if you haven't joined us before. Ben and I are serial entrepreneurs. We run a multitude of businesses, which we'll go into detail weekly in our live at 5, and we've got a jam-packed agenda. Thanks for joining on the XP Express this week.
I was just actually looking at this page. It needs updating based on some recent awards being won. So
yeah,
I'll have to do that next week.
Our award shelf and slide need enhancing.
Yeah.
So on the agenda today, fire plans and floor plans. It sounds super boring, but if anyone out there is buying sites or is in the acquisitions part of their business, you need to know this hack to help you analyze projects. Plot sales and the legal fee for doing plot sales. So plot sales is when you finish a development, you're selling units at the tail end. We'll be talking about conveyancing plans for developments. We'll be talking about, have we completed on an airspace development we've been working on for maybe even a couple of years now, I think, running back the clock. Some public relations. We featured in an independent article, and we'll be sharing what is in the article and a little bit more about that. I've got a slight sore head because we were at the Bluebricks Awards yesterday and the wine was very appealing on the dinner table. We will be joining Ben on a tour around a £5 million house, which has just gone up on YouTube. We'll be talking about social housing valuation, commercial valuations, and what we've been dealing with in the last week with valuations.
Cool, sweet. And as always, your questions answered. So if anything pops out, if you've got some pressing business or property questions that you just need to know now, drop them in the comments below and we'll try and pick up on them. Cool. Fire plans and floor plans.
So this is actually like a little XP hack that we've been doing ever since we set up the business. Quite frequently when paid for a full measured survey, and they sometimes haven't even pulled together marketing floor plans to show you what you're buying. All residential properties, it's very standard. Get the EPC done, get the floor plans done, get the photographs done, and bang it on Rightmove. And if they're a good agent, get a sale. But with commercial assets, it's a little bit more what I call muddy and lazy. Commercial agents don't work Saturdays. They don't always have comprehensive packs pulled together. And quite frequently, they don't have floor plans. Now, if there's 30, 20, however many people looking at buying a site, you may find that it's really difficult to go around with a laser, measure things up exactly. So one really big top tip that we always advise anyone does is every commercial building has to have a fire plan. A fire plan is basically outlining where the exit routes are for whoever is in that building to evacuate. That has to be displayed within the building, and it comically is quite accurately drawn up. Well, more accurately than not having one. So what we tend to do is just take a photo of that, not to get accurate measurements or do space planning or anything like that, but it's to mark our measurements on it or annotate the drawings to show certain features, details like where the waste sits, where the riser in the building might be, which bit's occupied, which bit's not, and use these fire plans to help you do your due diligence on the site. And it sort of pieces it all together. So you're not just fumbling around in the dark, calling, this particular building that you can see in front of us on the right for podcast listeners. It's basically a winged building, and we can actually go through the building step by step, understanding which bit's occupied, which bit's not, which bits we'd convert first. And it just gives you a little bit more substance around the site when you're doing your due diligence and likely to make less mistakes and bid the wrong price. So a huge tip is find the fire plan, take a photo. Ben and I actually ended up buying a site purely off the basis of having a floor plan in West Drayton. I'm pretty sure we actually took the fire plan, took the longest measurement on site with a laser, put that on it, and then kind of space planned around that. And it wasn't too far off. It was way more accurate than if we were guessing or drawing it from scratch. So that's it. Anything you want to add, Ben?
No, I think that's a really good tip. They're often, they have to be displayed on site. So, the first thing that you come into when you come into a new commercial building, it should be there, right there as you come into the entrance. So yeah, take a photo of it. We use Bluebeam PDF editing software, which allows you to scale plans. So like Jack says, if we've got like one of the long measurements or 1 or 2 check dimensions, we can then use Bluebeam to kind of give us a head start on a lot of people that are either waiting for that information to come through from the agent, or just making estimations, which is gonna sort of not allow them to offer really what they might be able to offer if they know the true scale and size of a building and layout. So yeah, like it. Good. Plot sales and legal fees for banks. This is another one that you wanted to add, because we've been going through this recently on a lot of our projects.
So this is a top tip to save you thousands of pounds, and I don't want anything in return other than maybe share
So
podcast
generous.
with a friend. So really long story short, we're developing out a phase 2 of Tame up and coming, which will be 20 flats, 6,000 square foot of office space, and potentially some new build houses. So technically speaking, you could argue that that's going to be maybe 21 to 25 sales that will all require legal work, and that's legal work for us. That's legal work for the buyers. That's legal work for our bank. That's legal work for our investors, etc., etc., etc. And believe it or not, in the property game, lawyers are very handsomely paid for quite complicated site sales like this. So what we do and what we've been doing of late is we're gathering terms for phase 2 of the development. So we're going out to existing debt lenders to fund phase 2. And as part of that, we want transparency on all the costs associated working with that lender. Obviously, arrangement fees, cost of debt, exit fees, valuation, all the professional fees. But what we are doing with all of our debt lenders is agreeing how much they charge legally at the tail end of the project. So normally it's common that you'll get a legal fee to acquire the site or to refinance the site. But we also agree what they're going to charge at the tail end doing plot sales. The reason we do that is because when you're selling 25 times over for the same site and you've already bought the site and you haven't pre-agreed those fees, the bank might say that's £1,000 a pop or £1,500 per pop. But what you do if you tie it in before they've lent is they're all chummy and trying to win the business, and you're on the good side of them. As soon as you've bought it, you've lost your negotiation power. So we agree that fee and make sure it's reasonable from the outset. So in a year or 2 years' time, when you are at the tail end selling those units, you are actually then in a position where you're working off a fee that you've pre-agreed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen legal fees come down. So I don't think you're going to be doing yourself hard justice by agreeing a fee today and then revisiting it in a couple of years. But just that's a little top tip to make sure that they're not basically having your pants down and you're paying thousands for each plot sale, as well as your own legal fees on your side, as well as the banks.
Nice. I'd like to chip in on this in terms of some of the projects because as people know, if you've been listening to this, we've got a big delivery pipeline at the moment, 65 units to deliver over the next 12 months. So we're having lots of conversations with solicitors on various sites about the plot sales, working with solicitors as well. So in terms of costings that we're seeing at the moment, you're talking somewhere between sort of £2,000 and £4,000 to actually review the titles and the site constraints. Another kind of £2,000 to £3,000 to actually pull together the sort of contract legal pack. And then on top of that, for each and every sale, you're probably looking at something between £600 and £1,500 per plot sale. Depending on, a lot of solicitors that we've been working with will do a price based on GDV of the plot sale. So if you've got a 500 grand flat that you're selling, for example, you might spend £800 on that plot. If it goes up to £1 million sale price, then that might be £1,000 per plot sale at that level. So generally, I'd say like £3,000 to £5,000 at the very front end to pull all the contract information together and look at the report on the title. And then for each and every sale, you're looking at somewhere between 600 and 1,500 quid, something like that, depending on the size and value of the property that you're selling. So hopefully that gives a few people some insight. We've been working on schemes between sort of 9 and 25 units, and that's the general estimation in terms of legal fees that we've had back. And these are from pretty sizable lawyers, sizable sort of companies. There'll obviously be a lot of people out there, a lot of solicitors out there that are smaller practices that might be charging less, but we sometimes find, or often find, that actually cost isn't always the best thing to look at, and it's actually speed and capabilities of delivering. Fundamentally, you want plots to sell as fast as practically possible, because you're just holding interest costs at the end of the project when the units are finished. So speed actually and competence is more important than cost a lot of the time when you're exiting a site. Cool. And that kind of brings me on to the third point, which I thought would tie in well to the first two, and that's conveyance plans. I do apologize for podcast listeners, because this is very visually heavy in terms of what I'm talking about here, but that's all the more reason to head over to YouTube and check out the videos that we record, as well as listing on the podcast as well. But conveyance plans are effectively a set of plans that go into the legal title, and the lease plans effectively of the sale of the properties that you're looking to do. And there's a few things that you'll need to do and provide when you've got a big site like this one. So the drawings that you can see on screen are of our Tame site. That's 20 flats, 6,000 square foot of office space, and then circa 30 odd car parking spaces. So what you'll see is each individual plot is highlighted in terms of sort of the boundary of that plot, and then numbered. So unit 1 is this red one in the middle. The green outline is to indicate communal space. We've got sort of shaded pink areas that show that that's the garden stroke amenity for each individual plot. And then you've got other colors like it's quite a complicated car parking arrangement for this site. So every residential space is outlined in purple. We've got some commercial tenants on site that have access between certain times of the day. So they're sort of outlined in orange, some outlined in blue, some hatched in green. So it's quite a complicated sort of arrangement. So this master conveyance plan is to give your solicitors and give your solicitors really an idea of what's going on, and allow them, give them a plan that they can refer to in their lease. So in the lease, what you'd see is, I'm buying unit 1. Here's the master conveyance plan. We would then do an individual lease plan for unit 1 as well, which would just pull out that specific flat. It would show the garden amenity in pink hatch, for example, and in the title register and the lease, the solicitor would make reference to that pink hatch in the wording of the lease. So there's a correlation between kind of the ownership and the demise outlined in red for the individual flat, and then all of the associated things. So actually, if it was if the flat had an allocated parking bay, it would be highlighted in purple outline, for example, and the outline and the numbers of the parking bays would be labeled. So in the lease plan, they can say it's, they have access to park in the purple outline parking bay number 7, that type of thing. So it's basically, conveyance plans are there to help solicitors show the legal entity, the legal demise, the access arrangements of the site, so that they can reference it within their title registers and lease plans. So a bit techie, but fundamentally, if you're selling lots of plots, you're going to need to get on top of this. Typically, your architect can help with these. Most of the time it's Aura providing these lease plans and conveyance plans. It does take a bit of getting used to, but a good solicitor, like the one that we used on this project, for example, will send you an example conveyance plan that they can almost follow. And they would have done it so many times. They know what they want you to show, how they want you to show it, and that can just be passed on to the architect to then draw up. But not the most glamorous of things to be doing from an architect perspective, but it's all part of the process, so it needs to be done. Cool. And we are, spoiler alert, kind of pre-recording this because Jack's getting pissed in Ascot tomorrow. So it is actually Thursday afternoon rather than Friday afternoon. So we're not technically live. Sometimes we have to do this because things get in the way. But I'm hoping that by the time this airs live at 5 p.m. on Friday, that we have actually completed on an Airspace development that Jack said in the intro has been in the build up, in the making for, I'd say, over 2 years now, isn't it, since we first sort of opened conversations. We had a planning application refused. Actually we went through, it was fraught with issues really from a planning perspective. We had a pre-app. I think we submitted a full planning application that got rejected. They requested that we do another pre-app, so we did another pre-app. Then off the back of that, we went back in for planning based on their feedback. It's it was a real hard battle, to be honest. But eventually we've ended up something that's buildable, that looks great. It's only 2 units. We were hoping to squeeze a third out of it, but with the changes that they wanted us to make and the fact that they thought it was kind of too hot, top heavy, and all the other constraints that they put on us, we had to reduce it down to just 2 units. We're recladding the facade of this building because it's a butt ugly 1970s yellow brick building, which just looks horrendous. So part of, you know, improving the overall building, as well as adding the extra floor on top, was to reclad the facade, and, you know, essentially add value to the whole freehold, add value to the whole leasehold, 9 flats that are in the existing block of flats below it. So this is something that is now too small for us. You know, 2.5, 3 years ago, whenever it was when we started looking at this, you know, we were happy to kind of take this on, and it would have been a new thing for us in terms of airspace. But in reality, this size of project is now, you know, way too small for us, and we're just going to be looking to flip this straight back onto the market with planning approval in place. So if you are down in southwest London, this is close to Loughborough Junction and West Norwood. If you're looking for an airspace development or any development in southwest London, you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you want to buy an airspace development for about £250,000, do get in touch and let's have a chat. But it will be going on the open market very shortly. Anything you wanted to say, Jack?
No, other than I think there's just Ben touching on, like, you know, this is a bit small for our wheelhouse to be delivering it anymore, and we're moved on to slightly bigger projects because we've got the team to facilitate that. But it's the right size out there for maybe contractors or builders that want to take on a project and keep their guys busy and have control, be their own client essentially. But one thing this has really done for us, as I feel talking about an airspace development is actually really good, and we'll come on to the next slide, really good PR for our business, showing that we can do slightly more complicated projects through planning with the support of Aura Architecture. But yeah, it's not one for us at this point in time. We've got much bigger schemes to be delivering. So a good little scheme if anyone is interested to break the airspace, but it should be fairly straightforward in terms of delivery.
Yeah, it should. And I was going to touch on, actually, we did consider on this to do like a prefab, you know, off-site MMC type extension. So basically create all of the pods off-site and then kind of crane them in on top and drop them in fully finished. And it would, you know, from a test case perspective and kind of cutting your teeth on that type of off-site manufacture with airspace developments, it would have been a great opportunity to test that. But like we said, we've got a massive delivery of pipeline at the moment, and we don't really want to add 2 small units down in southwest London onto that. So we will be looking to sell it on with planning permission. If you're interested to learn kind of more about these types of things, you know, we have done everything from airspace developments, new build, ground up, commercial to residential conversions, buy to lets, HMOs, service. I mean, anything from a property strategy perspective, we've done it. If we haven't done it, then somebody in our boardroom group, I've no doubt, will have done. So if you're interested in learning from other property developers and investors that are growing to, you know, 7-8 figures in terms of revenue and size of project, we do have some spaces left. If you're interested in joining our boardroom, we meet every month, half a day kind of session to really strategize, look at goals and achievements over the previous months and looking ahead. Deal clinic analysis, so, you know, 3 or 4 projects that people are looking at actively live on the drawing board. You know, what can we do with them? What are the constraints? How can we make best value out of them? That's what these boardroom sessions are all about. So do get in touch if you want to join those. We'd love to have you.
We did actually have someone apply today, so space is going fast.
Excellent. Good stuff.
PR.
Yeah, if you'd have seen last week, last Friday, I think we launched it. It went on to the Independent and the Business Reporter news. It was a bit weird, really, to be honest, to go onto the Business Reporter website and see, you know, Jack and I standing there in front of a brick wall with the article that we had written. So, property developing duo are disrupting the UK real estate space. Here's how. That's the headline. It's all about kind of our history over the last 7 or 8 years. How we've built to kind of the multiple businesses that we run, the ecosystem, what they're all about, what each one does. You know, it's really, I find it difficult anyway when you're sort of networking and people say, what do you do? it depends what hat I'm wearing and who I'm talking to generally. So, generally it's, we're developers, and then I have to go into all the other businesses that we run, and, something good often comes out of the conversation depending on which business we're talking about. But this article is really to kind of help drive, investment into the business. That's the main goal of this. The idea is to attract external investment to help, to invest in our projects. Give a little bit of a showcase of one of the case studies, which was our St Helens Mill project, which won Property Deal of the Year in the Property Investor Awards a couple of years ago. Cracking deal. So we just showcased that one, as well as a lot of our sites. So, we've got various snippets of different sites that we're working on. And Jack and I did a filming day for a couple of days last month to showcase some of the good stuff that we're working on. And this PR launch is, the start of hopefully a lot more, and raising our profiles in the industry, not necessarily just in sort of the property sphere, but this has gone into the sort of fintech and banking sector. So we're hopefully sort of trying to branch across to other sectors and bring investment from over there. Most people that are in banking and finance typically, know that real estate is a solid asset to invest in. So we want to bring new investors into our wings and help us kind of deliver and grow the business over the next couple of years. So if that's you and you're listening to this, do get in touch. We'd love to have a chat. Do follow us across on social media. One of the things we did do as part of this article is to add it's about a 10-minute video. So the article gives a real overview of kind of what's happened over the last 8 years. But the video is, some insight into some of those projects, a little bit more detail around what each business does. So do head over to YouTube as well to watch the video.
I actually wanted to try something.
Mm-hmm.
It might work, it might not. Can you click the banner here? And if it works, Christina's going to try and put a banner in after the fact.
Nice.
If it doesn't work, the link will be in the show notes. But I thought we'd try it because I was chatting to, if anyone else watches Carwell drag races, Matt from Carwell always does watch this video and look how shit a Tesla is and stuff like that. And I just thought we'll bring it into XP.
Nice. I think you need to point that way. That's it, to the left. Yeah. That's what Dan always tells me in the Aura videos. Point to the top left, because that's where the little card comes up. But anyway, Christina, you have to guide us. Cool. And as Jack said, he's got a bit of a sore head. I had an absolute blast last night. I think it was the first ever Bluebricks magazine. So Sam, who's standing there in the middle, absolute kudos to what he's achieved with Bluebricks over the last 2 years since he bought it in, I think, 2022. We were in a castle up in Chester. The castle was insane. And this is the first awards that they've undertaken. And it was a massive success as far as I'm concerned. We had the winner of Britain's Got Talent doing some mind-boggling, mind reading and magic tricks that I've no idea how he did them. But it was a really great opportunity to meet new faces, see old faces, celebrate all of the good stuff that's happening in the property industry. Part of his kind of chat was, there's a lot of bad press for landlords and property investors out there, in the mainstream media. And what he really wants to achieve with Bluebricks magazine and these property awards is to really just showcase all of the really good people that are in the space, that are doing amazing things, helping lots of people from an ethical and a sustainable perspective. And I think there were, 250 people in the room, sit down dinner, loads of drinks flowing, just lots of good conversation. So fair play to Sam. If you're not sort of following Bluebricks magazine on social media, please do. And also, go over to the website and subscribe. The magazine is great. We had a few chats with Sam about getting some articles of our own in there and working with him and, being, consistent editors, writing consistently for him in terms of articles and showcasing some of the things that we're doing. So, super excited to be involved in that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add again about surrounding yourself with other businesses that are similar or bigger to your own. And I had a really good, probably 45-minute chat with 2 businesses that are sort of similar scale to us or even bigger. And it's just sort of a little bit of like rivalry there, but it's super healthy. You know, the UK property market is big enough for us all to be successful, and to sort of share notes. And it is refreshing when you talk to someone and they got the same problems, and you know, how are they overcoming them? Because sometimes you feel in a lonely space that, you know, when does the cash flow get over the brow of the hill, or you know, other areas like that. So yeah, that was great to be there, and some really you know, some really admirable property people, and I loved Sam's outlook. I thought Sam was, you know, he's great. He's obviously a sharp cookie, but I loved his outlook to try and get local press improving landlords' reviews and things like that. So thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
Especially the wine.
Yeah. And on to some other things now that I've been up to this week. Actually, sorry, this was a couple of weeks ago. I did actually film for a £3.5 million house in Fulham this week, which is again a kind of basement with 4 stories above by a young developer that's created a fantastic product. So, you know, in the next hopefully month, that will be launched as well on our Homes by Aura YouTube channel. So if you're not following the Homes by Aura YouTube channel, please head over there. Yeah, we've kind of built the program hopefully for inspiration, show you some of the transformations that we've done, and then also education around kind of the whole home improvement, extension and refurbishment process. We're up to about 1,300 subscribers now, which is absolutely great. Our last video that we only launched a month ago has had almost 10,000 views. That was a scheme in Balham that was a sort of ground floor rear extension with amazing glazing. And if you don't know what an Oriel window is, head over there and take a look at that video, because I love them, and you'll see them in a lot more Aura projects. But the video that we launched yesterday, which if you're following us on social media, you know, you'll see some of the reels and some of the snippets from it. But that's nothing compared to the actual house tour that we did. It was a different format this time round. I got a chance to speak to the developer, who's a guy called Akash, known him for many years, company called Saha Properties. I mean, his product and his end result of all the stuff that he does is absolutely sensational. He's also got a property, I think, up in North London, which is a brand new build, like 6-bedroom house, which, you know, some of the most amazing finishes that I've ever seen on that property. So this guy knows what he's doing. This project was no different. It's a property in Wandsworth in southwest London. We basically dug half the garden out. So it was, I think, 4 stories, like split level. And we kind of added a 5th story by digging down a sort of even lower ground floor, extending that all the way out into the garden, being clever with some of the split levels internally. And he even says in the video, you know, one of the things he was really nervous about was how much we were trying to push the envelope externally to the rear, and he wasn't actually sure whether we would get planning approval for it. But, you know, we had confidence. The first floor rear extension is like half the width of the house, which isn't too common, but we felt that like it was you know, valid, and we could achieve it, and we did. You know, first time round we got planning approval straight away for these massive extensions to the rear. Added, you know, extra space to the bedroom at first floor level, but also in the loft of that rear outrigger, we've got an amazing 4-piece principal bathroom suite, which, yeah, absolutely just looks incredible. And if it was slightly narrower, it would have made that whole space a lot more difficult to space plan. But because we achieved what we did at planning, it just looks amazing. So yeah, please do head over, you know, like, subscribe, comment. We're trying to build the channel as much as we can, you know, to educate people around the whole process, but also give inspiration. You know, all of the fittings and furnishings and finishes within the projects that we tour, you know, all of that information is down in the description. So to Luso Stone, to Mandarin Stone, to whoever the kitchen manufacturer was, where they got their worktops from, and, you know, all that good stuff is down there in the description for everyone to see. So yeah, please do like and follow. We're really trying to grow it. So, you know, if it's not for you, but you know someone else that's just about to start an extension or house refurbishment, please do pass the link on to them. I guarantee they'll get lots of value from all of the tours that we've been doing.
Just before we dive on from there, I've got a fun fact, just because I was interested. You mentioned Oriel window, so I googled why is it called an Oriel window. And the fun fact is, they are actually founded in the Islamic culture, and these windows and balconies project from the street front of houses, providing an area which in women could peer out and see the activities while remaining invisible.
Interesting. Yeah, did not
So
know that.
there you go. And
Look great.
there's a few.
Not sure about the, you know, the origins of the the reasoning for it, but yeah, they still look good.
Apparently, Wikipedia is either wrong or it's right. Who
Yeah.
knows?
No, I like it. That's good. Top fun fact of the day. Cool. And then, you know, if you are listening on the podcast, obviously we've got our YouTube channels. We launched this. You know, we're now almost up to speed from the backlog that we've put into audio format and then pushed onto the Property Experts podcast. So if you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much. I noticed, I think we had 4 or 5 reviews or rates on 5-star on Spotify the other day. We really want to keep that going to build momentum. Everyone we speak to has just great things to say about these podcasts, so super happy with that, and you know, hopefully people are getting value from it. So one thing we always ask for you, just only one thing really, is just to share it with one person that you think might get value from this. It's something that we've been working hard on now for pretty much 18 months. We've got a lot more exciting things to come because we've just taken on a video editor to sort of package these up and launch it all over our social media, to really drive more traffic to it, because we think, you know, there is a lot of value in these and we want to share it with people. So help us do that. Thank you. Cool. One of the big topics for today, social housing valuations. Super excited about this, actually.
Yeah, so we've had a busy few weeks in our Apara social business, which we won the award for, which we mentioned last week. So we're kind of doing the last bunch of revaluations for the refinances of our portfolio. It's actually about, I think it's somewhere around sort of £8 to £10 million worth of debt across 5 assets. So it's quite a lumpy figure. And we've got a lead runner, I suppose, from a debt lender that we're looking to go, but we obviously need to get valuations done in place. I can't remember exactly which episode it is. I was just looking, Ben, but we might have to put it in the show notes, where we talked about valuation packs. But when you're valuing commercial buildings, we've said before that you're valuing it on its income, and then you multiply it by what value that income would generate in that market. So if it's central London, it might be a 5% cap rate. So you take the rent, times it by 20 to get to your 100% valuation. If it's a lower value area, like you know, let's say Yorkshire, and you're buying a 10% yield, you'll then times that income by 10 to get your 100% valuation. That is how you value up our social housing portfolio on a commercial valuation and also commercial properties. So we've actually had a bunch of valuations done back in September, October for a different debt lender, which were with a valuer called Lambert Smith Hampton, who came in really good and really strong for us, which is high values. And we recently onboarded and paid and carried out a new valuation with Allsops, and it's come in a little bit softer. Still dealer, you know, we can still manage, so it's not the end of the world, but we're always trying to improve our IRR on our equity and get the debt piece as high as it possibly can for this particular product, because it's, you know, the servicing of the debt is less than our yield, so it improves our cash return on that. So Lambert Smith Hampton were about 6%. So this is 10 to 25 year assets, valuing the net income at 6%. And that's for a registered housing association to be within our buildings. That was in September, October. We actually had one this year that was also about 6 concluded. For those of you that don't know what special assumptions are, when you're buying an asset that you are just finishing, or you might get planning, or there's something predictable coming in the future, the valuer can actually put in value A today and value B with a special assumption what that's going to be. And what that just helps is it helps you having to go back and forth again in sort of 3, 4, 5 months time when that special assumption is a reality. So we're around 6% with LSH, and we have come in at about 6.7% with Allsops. Now that doesn't sound like a huge swing to maybe you guys out there, but it's, you know, it's a 10% swing, and across £9 million, that's quite a large swing in value. So what that swing difference means is the value of the buildings come down, you know, for an example, 7% or 0.7% on the cap rate, which equals about 10% of the total value. the bank will only obviously lend up to about 72% loan to value on that. So our equity or cash out on that refinance is lower. To get to decide and make sure it was worthwhile sending all stops out, because they, we're talking fives, maybe even tens of thousands for the bulk of valuations that we have had carried out. We did a lot of work to get them to the point to sort of semi-agree with our values. We sent them the LSH valuations. We talked them through the product. We walked them through the process. Maybe they would have been a bit higher and a worse evaluation if we hadn't invested all of that time. But we had to give it a bit of a backstory. Now, what do you do in our situation? Evaluation isn't good as it potentially was. We've run a cash flow, still works. So we're probably of the mind to keep cracking on. The benefit and the blessing of a slightly lower valuation is your debt is lower and therefore your mortgage cost is lower. So it's kind of that balance where ideally you want some form of gearing that suits you. Everyone has a different risk appetite. This is being revalued at 72% LTV. So not, as high as 75%, which tends to be the maximum that lenders would go to on an investment or a development product. But also not low gearing. But we want this to hold for cash flow. And we're locking these mortgages in for about 6.19% for 5 years. So it's not a bad product. Maybe that might move a little bit. I don't know, if the government decides to move rates, but that's where we're currently at. One other final thing to say is, depending on who, just a bit of a warning, really, if you're going with a lender, like a debt lender, and you are doing the DD, and we talked about when you're sort of pre-arranging the facility, agreeing the legal fees up front earlier on in the episode. One thing that is also really important is understand what market value they would take. So for the viewers on here, but for the podcast listeners, I'll sort of go through it. There's different assumptions. On the screen is worth £1 million. If you needed to sell that within 90 days, the price is going to be compromised. There's a fair linear line of valuation of speed and money. So I always say that a seller is motivated by either speed or money. If they need to sell it quickly, the price is going to then be softened to get the attraction and to get people to transact. So the market value for a 90-day period is 900,000, and the market value for a 180-day period is 1 million. And what you might not realize is some lenders out there will only go off a 180-day valuation, or may even go off a 90-day valuation. So make sure you understand that before you fork loads of time, effort, and legal fees and valuations to go down that route. But generally speaking, we don't think 6.7% is the end of the world. Obviously, it's a difficult market for people that are buying yield because their debt's higher and the cost, the cream at the end. We've been in a market where we've raised costs and flattened values. Is not easy to proceed, but it would be really interesting if there's anyone else out there that's getting valuations done on social housing. We'd love to hear where yours are coming in at. So comment, the sort of percentage yield rates that you're seeing. But our spread is between 6 and 6.7%. Anything else to add, Ben?
I just wanted to give a bigger overview, really, because there'll be some people that haven't tuned into this, and I think we said last week that we haven't talked about it enough, even though we won the award for best progressive social housing investor at the HMO Awards. A lot of people don't even know what we've been doing. I spoke to Sean from the TDC at an event the other week, and when I was discussing it with him, he was like, he had no idea that the scale of what we've been doing, which sort of started as a side hustle, really, didn't it, like 4 years ago, and we were sort of dabbling in the social housing sector and seeing how it all operates, and built a business with some other partners. But over the last 4 years, coming up 4 years now, we've been building a social housing portfolio in South London. So we've got lots of assets in Croydon, Lambeth and Bromley. We've bought 14 properties over the last 4 years. We've refurbished them to create about 135 bed spaces. So we house and tenant vulnerable people with mental health issues, special educational needs requirements, ex-military, sort of domestic violence abuse victims, people that are just need some transition back to normal life after some hardship and difficulties. And it's been a real learning curve, but we've done all that with sort of private investment. So we've brought some external investment into this. We've bought the assets as landlord, as developer. We've refurbished them and extended where necessary to create as many bedsit rooms as we possibly can. And then we've basically leased them to a housing provider on a 10 or 25-year lease. So Jack mentioned sort of 10 and 25 years earlier. That's what that means. So it's a full repairing and insuring lease to a housing provider who basically tenants all of the properties, provides the support and extra care that those tenants need, and they get a local housing allowance. So, sorry, the council, as part of sort of universal credit and the sort of social housing process, there is a local housing allowance per bedroom that we get as landlord, and the care occupier or the registered social landlord get an enhanced level of care provision. So they might pay us, for example, 250 quid a week per bed, and they might get another 250 pounds per bed for the care provision that they provide to pay for the staff, to check on all of the people, give help and aid to help people write their CVs, and help with IT support, and generally kind of help them through that benefit system. So that's the real sort of general overview. The valuations now are coming at the tail end of the 4 years. We've finished most of those assets. There's only one to finish currently, which will be done in the next 2 months. And now it's all about yield and valuation levels. So the difficulties we've had is that Liz Truss kind of at the end of 2022 kind of threw the yield market into array. The sort of SONIA swap rates, which is what most people buy their money at, so what most banks buy their money at, has increased significantly over that time, which has basically driven yields up. So when we were setting out on this portfolio build, we were trying to get it to a scale and a point whereby at the time, sort of yield values, yield cap rates were about 5.5%. So you can sort of see from Jack's conversation about 6.7%, 6%, 6.3%, whatever it may be. It's a long way off where we anticipated being. And as Jack said, that 1% difference might not feel like a lot, but when it's a £20 million portfolio and therefore a 10% decrease in value of the asset, you're talking big money. So it's been a real tough challenge, and I think that was part of the reason why we won the Best Progressive Investor award a couple of weeks ago. But every business it has its challenges, as they do. You've just got to persevere and progress and move forward. So it'd be nice to get these refinanced, recapitalized a little bit, and see where the next couple of years take us. But hopefully that's useful for people to understand how the social housing space works a little bit, how valuing commercial assets work. And if you've got any comments about that, then drop them below. It's new to us over the last 4 years, but we've learned a hell of a lot. So hopefully we can help you if you're looking to get into this space. Cool. And as always, if you've got any questions, please do drop them in the comments below, whatever platform you're on, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. That's typically where we launch these broadcasts. I don't know how you can ask a question on a podcast. Can you do that in Apple? Or I know you can't do it really on Spotify. I think just DM one of us on our social media platforms. We're all over the place. A lot of people said last night at the Bluebricks award. I mean, to be honest, a lot of people came up and said, been listening to what you've been up to. Looks really good. I've got no idea who they are.
I don't know if Ben's actually left the building. Interesting. I think Ben's dropped off. But anyway, I think we were pretty much at the end of the episode. Anyhow, thanks very much for tuning in. If you could just do one thing and share it with one friend that you think might benefit from learning about all the facets of businesses off us once a week, please do that. And we would really, really appreciate it. But keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.